In this video, we're going to do a brief overview of the different types of graphs and how we can use the information in those graphs to pull out data. Our first graph that we have is a line plot, and as you can see here, this line plot is discussing science scores from Miss Frizzle's science class. When we look at a line plot, each X represents one piece of information. So this X here is one student, and that one student is someone who got an 88% on their test. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students who got a score of an 88%. If we look at this X is also one student, but this is one student who got a 95%. So if we count all those up, we have 3 students who scored a 95%. If we look at 99%, there's no X's here, so that means that there are 0 students that scored 99%. So if we look at our first question, we wanted to know how many students received a score of 94%, so I'm going to go to where I see 94, and that's our first column here, and that's 1, 2 students. When I'm asked for the highest score, down along the axis here my score is 88%, 92%. The highest score on the axis is 100, but there are no students here. Likewise, there are no students at 99, so the highest score that a student got would be right here at 98%. If we wanted to know how many students were in Miss Frizzle's class, that would be how many X's, because remember, each X represents a student. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So altogether we have 27 students in the science class. And now you have enough information that you should be able to answer those other 2 questions, as well as the questions down here on this line plot. Something that could be tricky: how many hours did the most students volunteer? Remember that we're looking for the most X's. Each X is one student, so where we have the most X's, that would be right here at 3. So the most students volunteered for 3 hours. And then how many hours did 4 students volunteer for? This would be, where do we see 4 X's? So wherever we see the word student or score, we can replace that with X's. So 4 students, we see 2, 3, 5, 3, 2, and 4 is here with 6 hours. So we're going to have 4 students did 6 hours worth of volunteering work. Alright, so now we're going to keep going. We're going to look at a pie chart, or the circle graph. So this is where each wedge of the circle represents a different portion or a different chunk of our data set. So here, the first thing that we need to find out whenever we're dealing with a circle graph is the total number of students. So in our problem, if we read that, we can see that we had all 30 students. And now we need to use that number and the percentages to figure out the actual number of students or number of votes that we had. So if we have 50% for the nature preserve, this means 50% of 30 students. So 50% of 30 is 0.5 times 30. That would be 15 votes for the nature preserve. If we look at 10% for the science museum, that would be 10% of 30, and 10% of 30 is 3. So you can try that with the other 2 sections and use that to fill in the rest of the data in the table. Then we can answer the questions below using those numbers from the chart above. Lastly, we have our stem and leaf plot. And when we have a stem and leaf plot, the most important part of it is the key down at the bottom that tells us how to read it. And if we look at our key here, we can see that the number on the left, the stem, is 4, and the leaf, the number on the right, is 8. And when we see 4 separated by the line 8, that means 48. So this tells us from the key that our stems are all the tens digit and our leaves are all the ones digits. So this number here is 51, this is 63, 65, 66, and so on. So if I wanted to know how many leaves are on stem 7, I would go to stem 7 and I would count 1, 2, there's 2 leaves. Next we are asked about the mode. Remember that the mode is the number that appears the most in the data set. So we might look quickly and say, okay, there's 3 5s here, so that's our mode. But remember, those 5s aren't the same thing. This is 51, this is 65, and this one is 95, so they're different. So we want to look for a repeat in the same row of our leaves, and if we look, we see that we don't have that, so there actually is no mode here. The median is the number that's in the middle, and in the stem and leaf plot, our data is actually already arranged in order. So when we find the median, the numbers have to be in order first, so I'm going to cross off 1 from the beginning, 1 from the end. 1 from the beginning, 1 from the end. Beginning, end, beginning, end, beginning, end, beginning, end, beginning, end, and now I have this one number left in the middle. And it's not 3, because it's on this stem, it's 83. For the mean, we're going to add up all of the numbers and we are going to divide it by the total number of values that we added up. So I'm going to erase this here so we can see. And the numbers that we're going to add up are not just the leaves and not just the stems. Instead, we have 51 here, 63, 65, 66 here, 70, 72, and so on down below. I'm going to add all of those up and divide by the total number of numbers that we have. If we wanted to know how many students completed the quiz, that would mean how many leaves do we have on our chart. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we have 15 students that completed the quiz. The highest score is not going to be 9, even though that's the highest number that we see here, because this is 89. But we also have 90, 95, 98. The highest score is actually going to be down here at 104.